What if I told you that the greatest threat to Russia's tanks may not be an advanced missile, a swarm of drones, or even NATO's air power, but something far older, far quieter, and far more unforgiving? The wetlands. Yes, swamps, peat bogs, the very landscapes that human beings once drained in the name of progress, now poised to become one of NATO's most unexpected weapons. Finland and Poland are leading the charge, and if their idea takes root, Vladimir Putin's armies could find themselves stuck, literally, if he dares to launch a war against NATO. Think about it. For 2.5 years, the war in Ukraine has been defined by machines. Tanks, artillery, missiles, drones, the steel and fire that dominate every headline. Russia, in particular, has relied on its massive fleet of armored vehicles to impose its will. Yet for every piece of heavy machinery, there is always a countermeasure. And sometimes that countermeasure doesn't come from high-tech labs or billion-dollar defense budgets. Sometimes it comes from the land itself. That's exactly the bet Poland and Finland are making right now. On August 29th, Euromaidan Press reported something extraordinary. Finland and Poland may have found the perfect way to counter Russia's rebuilding of its armored forces. Not by producing a new missile, not by inventing a revolutionary drone, but by restoring the wetlands, peat bogs, that once covered large swaths of their territories. Areas drained long ago for forestry, farming, and modern development may soon be deliberately flooded again. Why? Because tanks and armored vehicles cannot cross them. And tragically, we already know this isn't theory. Earlier this year in Lithuania, 4 American soldiers operating an M88 Hercules recovery vehicle became stuck in a peat bog. They couldn't escape on foot, and the vehicle was rendered useless. All 4 lost their lives. It was a horrible accident for NATO, but it revealed a brutal truth. These landscapes, when left to nature, are deadly to armored formations. Imagine that accident on a far larger scale, but this time with thousands of Russian troops and tanks. Politico was the first to break the broader story. It reported that Poland has already woven wetland restoration into its $2.69 billion Eastern Shield defense project. The Polish Ministry of Defense openly stated that the plan includes environmental protection, specifically reflooding peatlands and reforesting border areas. In Finland, France 24 revealed that the Ministries of Defense and Environment are preparing joint talks this autumn to launch their own peatland restoration program. A Finnish lawmaker, Pauli Aalto-Setälä, even put it bluntly, "In Finland, we have used our nature from a defensive angle in history, especially on the eastern border. There are many areas perfect for restoration, not just because of the climate, but to make them as difficult to cross as possible." The logic is powerful. Tanks cannot maneuver in wetlands. Their tracks sink. Their enormous weight makes them easy prey. Soldiers trying to escape on foot move slowly, vulnerable to exhaustion, ambush, and drones overhead. Suddenly, Putin's favorite weapon, the heavy armored assault, becomes a liability. But here's what they don't tell you. Wetlands are not just a new idea. They're an old, tested, and devastating tactic. History is full of examples. In 9 AD, Germanic tribes used bogs to trap Roman legions, turning one of the most advanced armies in the ancient world into easy prey. During the 1940s, when the Soviet Union tried to invade Finland, swampy borderlands slowed them down, forcing the Red Army into brutal attrition. Even Russia itself knows how terrain can crush invading armies. It has used winter, vast forests, and sheer geography to bleed foreign powers from Napoleon to Hitler. Now Putin may be on the receiving end of the same strategy. And this is not just about Finland and Poland. Germany has researchers at the Greifswald Meyer Center urging the EU to spend $580 million to restore nearly 40 square miles of wetlands. Their reasoning isn't environmental alone, it's military. As the center put it, wetlands are impassable for tanks. They slow troop movements, force predictable corridors, and make it easier to defend infrastructure and supply routes. Imagine if this idea spreads across NATO. Politico notes that Europe's existing and restorable wetlands form a kind of peat belt, stretching from the Arctic regions of Finland, through the Baltic states, across the vulnerable Suwalki Gap, and down into eastern Poland. In other words, a natural wall across NATO's most vulnerable frontier with Russia and Belarus. Now, skeptics might ask, why even bother with wetlands when drones have already proven so effective at destroying Russian tanks? After all, Ukrainian FPV drones are responsible for up to 85% of Russia's recent losses in men and equipment. On August 31st, Ukraine's defense ministry estimated Russia had lost more than 11,000 tanks, 2 more just the day before. Drones are cheap, precise, and devastating. Poland itself is investing $55 million this year alone in building a drone-centric defense force. And that's true, but here's the catch. Drones are far deadlier when their prey is immobilized. A tank trying to move and evade is dangerous. A tank stuck in a bog is a sitting duck. An operator confronted with a drone's incoming strike has one instinct: abandon the tank. But try fleeing across a swamp in full gear, sinking into wet soil with miles to go before finding solid ground. That's not escape. That's slow-motion suicide. Wetlands amplify the effectiveness of drones, turning them from powerful tools into absolute executioners. So what does this mean for Russia? It means that Putin's reliance on heavy armor, a doctrine rooted in World War II-style mechanized assaults, is becoming dangerously obsolete. Against Ukraine, Russia has already seen its armored columns shredded by cheap, nimble drones. Against Poland and Finland, it could face the double nightmare of swamps and drones together. Imagine Russian tanks bogged down, infantry slogging through marshland, while Polish and Finnish drones hunt them one by one. And this strategy has another advantage: legitimacy. While landmines are banned by international treaties, wetlands are not. Restoring bogs can be framed not as militarization, but as environmental stewardship. In fact, it's a dual victory. These wetlands help NATO's defense while also combating climate change, storing carbon, and protecting ecosystems. That's not just clever strategy, that's brilliant geopolitics. Already, activists in Poland like Wiktoria Jedrzejczyk from Fridays for Future are embracing the dual narrative. Wetlands are climate assets and defense assets. Once you talk about security, everyone listens in Poland, she told Politico. And she's right. In a country living in the shadow of Russian aggression, the idea that forests and bogs can become fortresses is a unifying one. Of course, this won't be easy. In Poland, about 85% of peatlands have already been drained, mostly for agriculture. Restoring them means tough decisions, potentially relocating farms or communities, but the military benefits may outweigh the costs. In Finland, about a third of the country is peatland, though half of that has been drained. Still, vast areas remain prime for re-wetting, especially along the vulnerable eastern frontier with Russia. And beyond NATO, Ukraine itself has every reason to want its wetlands back. Euromaidan Press pointed out that Russia's surprise assault through Belarus at the start of the 2022 invasion was only possible because Soviet programs had drained northern Ukrainian wetlands decades earlier. Had those wetlands still existed, Russia might have been stalled before it gained any ground at all. The tragedy is that restoration takes time, 2 to 4 years. For Finland and Poland, that's fine. For Ukraine, fighting a war today, that's too slow. Still, calls are growing for Ukraine to begin the process, no matter how long it takes. Even Estonia has joined the conversation. On August 28th, Politico reported that Estonia's Ministry of Climate confirmed it has begun talks with its defense ministry about including wetlands in a restoration project. The idea is spreading like wildfire, and it's spreading for one reason: it works. Let's be honest, the war in Ukraine has been catastrophic for the environment. Entire ecosystems destroyed, wildfires multiplied 78 times compared to pre-war years, oil refineries targeted by Ukrainian strikes to cripple Russia's economy. The climate damage is staggering. Wetland restoration offers a rare chance for a defensive strategy that doubles as environmental repair. For once, security and sustainability point in the same direction. So here's the big picture. Putin built his war machine around tanks. NATO is finding ways to make those tanks irrelevant. First it was precision anti-tank missiles, then it was swarms of FPV drones. Now it may be the land itself, bogs, marshes, wetlands that finish the job. Russia's armies could be forced into narrow, predictable corridors. They could find themselves bogged down, slowed to exhaustion, ambushed at will. The very earth of Eastern Europe could become NATO's silent ally. And that leaves us with the question, if Mother Nature is joining the fight, what chance does Russia really have? This is not just a story about Finland and Poland, it's a story about a new kind of warfare, one that fuses environment, technology, and strategy. A warfare where the defenders don't just fight with weapons, but with landscapes themselves. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think NATO's embrace of wetlands could truly stop Russia's tanks in their tracks? Or is this just a symbolic move, more about politics than real defense? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I'll be reading them. And if you found this analysis eye-opening, make sure to subscribe, follow the channel, and join us for the next episode. Because in today's world, the battlefield isn't just fought with missiles and machines. Sometimes it's fought with the swamps beneath our feet.